Hello from Hollywood. My name is Anthony Boyer. I've been a talent agent in Los Angeles for the last 15 years. And today on Take Fountain, we're going to talk about how much money you can make as an actor. There's an impression that acting is a bit of a feast or famine business. So we hear stories about like Margot Robbie. She made $12.5 million to shoot Barbie, $50 million after box office incentives. Or Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon, who made $50 million. Of course, a large part of that came out of his back end, but we'll discuss that later. On the other hand, you've probably grown up thinking of actors as starving artists. Maybe they make very little to nothing at all, right? Especially starting out at their careers. Well, I'm here to tell you that both of those can be true, but there's also a middle ground, sort of a middle class of actors, the working actors, who can make 5 or 6 figures every year, fully fund their acting businesses, and still advance their careers while making a living running their business. So if you're watching this video, there's a very good chance you want to know, or your parents want to know, how much does the average actor make? Well, I've got some bad news for you because there's no such thing as an average actor. There's going to be a lot of volatility year to year based on how many audition opportunities there are for you and how many of those opportunities you're able to successfully convert and how much those jobs pay once you book them. And there can be a lot of factors that influence that. So let's go through some of them. First up, let's talk about experience and reputation, right? When we talk about Margot Robbie or we talk about Leonardo DiCaprio like we did at the beginning of the video, these are marketable actors. They draw box office. Maybe you have a social media following that can get people to watch a project or to pay attention to a project you're part of. These kinds of things, establishing yourself on sets, being part of bigger and bigger projects, that will naturally help you gain experience and will naturally help you make more money moving forward. Another thing that can influence how much you make is the type and scope of the project. So if it's an episodic or if it's a feature or if it's theater, these are all going to have different scales and different amounts. And depending on the scope of them, for let's say a union feature film. Now you have the basic agreement, which is negotiated between SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP. And that is a base rate, what is called scale, and it can go up from there. And then there are smaller agreements. There's the modified low, the low budget, the ultra low budget agreement. And these basically pay a percentage of that basic agreement. And that all depends on the budget of the movie. And then there are other things that factor in that can help them have more budget but pay less. So there are all kinds of sizes and scales and scopes of projects, and that's going to affect how much you make. Another thing that might affect how much you make is simply market trends, right? For years, $20 million was thought of as immune from inflationary pressure. Jim Carrey made that for The Cable Guy back in 1996, and that was like the cap of what people made for a very long time. To this day, $20 million is kind of thought of as the high end of what an actor can make on a feature film, and Jim Carrey made it in 1996. Another market trend that we see these days is streamers. For years, cable sort of took over from networks. And so depending on where we are, is it a streamer, is it network, is it cable? These different presenters, these different distribution models tend to have different pay scales also. So if you're working for a streamer, you might make a certain amount. If you're working for, say, a broadcast network, you might make a certain amount also. So these all affect how much you make. One thing that can affect how much you make is simply location. If you're working in Atlanta, if you're working in Chicago, if you're working in Austin, Texas, if you're working in Los Angeles, if you're working in Portland, Oregon, these markets are all going to have different sort of scales of what's, I guess, normal. So let's talk about the types of work that actors can do. Number one, you're probably thinking about film and television. You might get paid a daily rate. You might get paid a weekly rate. You might get paid run of picture. And these can all be different scale amounts, or you can make what's called overscale if it's a negotiated amount. Now that's for union projects. Non-union works a little bit differently, but it's still going to be a daily rate, a 3-day rate, a weekly rate. It's going to be some set amount of time. And then with episodics, the way you get paid is, again, there are daily rates, There are weekly rates. You might get an episodic rate, which is you get paid X number of dollars for shooting the entire episode. So they book you for the entire run of the episode, but they may only use you a few days in there. You may also get what's called top of show, and you may also get, for a series regular, you're going to have a set episodic fee that's going to be higher than what they call top of show also. So again, with film and television, they're going to have set daily, weekly, and sometimes run of show or run of picture rates. Also, if these are union projects, they're typically going to have a residual structure in place. So over time, as these things rerun and re-air in different markets, and you may make a little bit more on the back end also. In the theater world, there are also different levels. There's local theater, there's regional theater, there's Broadway, of course, and there's touring. So when we talk about local theater, I'm typically talking about a 99-seat plan in Los Angeles, or the Showcase Code in New York, or the CAT Code in Chicago. That's the Chicago Area Theater Code. These small local contracts that are negotiated between Actors Equity and the producing unions, and they come up with set rates for actors to make. Again, this is going to be for union projects. Non-union is going to be a little bit different, but regardless, as you grow in scope, you're going to grow in how much you make. So if you work at, say, a League of Regional Theaters or a LORT theater, that's going to have a higher pay scale than what's called an SPT, a small professional theater contract. Moving up, if you get to Broadway, now there's a Broadway production contract, and the minimum on that is something above $2,000 a week. So if you do a year on a Broadway show, people love to say that you can't make money doing theater, but if you do a year on a Broadway show, you're making six figures right out of the pocket without even getting over scale. So on a union tour, they actually are frequently at the same scale as Broadway, plus you're getting per diem. Some of the smaller tours, they go down from there. They used to have what was called a CETA contract. Now they just have different levels of the touring contract. So the money gets a little bit smaller as you go down in tier, but it's always going to be pretty steady weekly money plus a per diem on a tour. On a non-union show, usually that's going to be a little bit different. They're going to pay a little bit less, but it's still regular money and a regular weekly rate. Voice actors have the same sort of number of various opportunities that on-camera actors do. So they might do an episodic where they're making a weekly or a daily rate or an episodic fee. Same with a feature. They might do an animated feature where they're making a weekly rate or a daily rate or a run of show rate. You can also do commercials as a voiceover actor. And then you can also do gaming is a really big thing for voice actors to do now too. So all of these kinds of ways of making money as a voice actor can also influence how much you make. And then as an on-camera actor, as we mentioned, you can do commercials that way too. So again, union versus non-union is going to influence everything, but you can make commercials and usually get a set fee, which is going to be what's called a session fee in the union world, where you get paid a certain amount of money to shoot that commercial. And then you get what's called a holding fee, which is at regular intervals. You get paid essentially one session fee to not shoot a commercial for a competing product. If you shoot, say, a Coca-Cola commercial, they pay you regularly to not shoot, say, a Pepsi commercial. They pay you what you would have made shooting that. So you get that holding fee, and then on top of that, frequently you'll get residuals also on commercials. Again, these are union commercials. Non-union commercials do tend to be a one-time buyout. So watch, make sure you understand that language. Another thing people don't really talk about much anymore is industrials. Industrials are a really interesting way to make money. They kind of fall in a gray area between commercials and episodics or theatrical work. So these are basically videos that companies make either for their buyers or for their employees for in-house training, that kind of thing. So industrials are corporate videos, basically. If you've ever gotten hired at a company and you had to watch that horrible employee onboarding video, that was an industrial, and that actor got paid to do that. So a beginning actor who's new to, say, Los Angeles might have a bit of a struggle to create a profitable business. it's very likely if you're watching this video that you fit into this category, that you're new to Los Angeles or you're thinking about moving to Los Angeles and you legitimately want to know, am I going to make money out of this business that I'm starting? And very realistically, at the beginning, even if you are making regular money, you're probably not going to want to quit your day job. You're probably going to want to use that money to continue to fund your business. And then you can kind of hit that rising star territory where you're starting to make some pretty good money. Maybe you've got a little bit of heat. Maybe you've got something that's doing well in the theaters. And in a situation like this, you're probably demanding a little bit more. You know, if you're booking a feature, you can probably get a little bit of overscale. On an episodic, you could probably negotiate a higher day rate. These are areas where I think you can start to make some real serious money. And again, you're going to be putting most of it into your business because especially when you're at that sort of rising star phase, many actors go in and out of this phase, right? So by rising star, I literally just mean like someone who has some heat, someone who has some movement, but is not sort of fully established yet. This is an area where I do think that you can start to make really 5 figures a year, 6 figures a year if you're very lucky and you get a commercial that's really running. These are areas where you can start to put away a little bit of money. The truth of the matter is most working actors, just because you saw someone on a television show or in a movie, they're not making huge paydays. So in the middle of your career, as you're sort of building, you know, those guest stars, as you're becoming recognizable, you're probably booking a few top of show guest stars a year. And a top of show guest star is going to pay about 10 grand an episode. So let's say that you book 4 or 5 episodes a year at top of show. Now, obviously you're at $40,000, $50,000. Maybe you book a national commercial and it's starting to pay some holding fees. So you're getting some money there. These are the kinds of actors who every year there's going to be a lot of volatility, as we mentioned. It's going to be up. It's going to be down. You might make $40,000 this year. You might make $70,000 the next year. You might make $35,000 the year after that. But this is the time when you can really start to put the pedal to the metal a little bit and really start to invest in the career and really start to establish yourself and get your team in order and build your network and set yourself up for future success. But don't count on these years to be consistently paying for the business itself. So a Broadway lead, we mentioned earlier that a Broadway minimum contract, you're probably getting paid about $2,000, a little over $2,000 a week. For a Broadway lead, if you go to see, you know, a big show, let's say Hamilton, right? Everyone loves Hamilton. Those lead actors are probably making about twice to 3 times that. So they might be making $4,000, $4,500, $5,000, $6,500 a week. So that can start to add up pretty quickly. Keep in mind they have to live in New York City, and it's very expensive to live in New York City. So, but if you pursue a Broadway path, that is definitely something where you can start to make some serious money. You can start to make, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, but you have to put in a lot of work and time in market and really build up to booking those Broadway leads. Now let's talk about series regulars, because I think a lot of actors, they think about, if I can get to series regular level, I've made it. And I'm sorry to tell you, there's no made it in this business. If you talk to any series regular, they're thinking about the next thing. They're thinking about, you know, what's next. The thing about series regulars is it's great while it lasts, right? You might be making $35K an episode. More likely, you're probably making about $50K an episode. But remember, these days, episode orders tend to be really small. So maybe you're doing 8 episodes, maybe you're doing 10 episodes. And, you know, if you're making $50K an episode and you're doing 10 episodes, that's $500,000 before taxes, before paying your agent, before paying your manager, publicist, lawyer. And while that sounds like a lot of money, $500,000, and it's nothing to sneeze at for sure, it's not necessarily going to set you up for the rest of your life. Realistically, if you are a series regular, I think looking at, you know, maybe $500,000 a year is probably doing pretty well. Series regulars are the most competitive jobs in town. Everyone's fighting for them. There are fewer and fewer of them every year. So just being realistic, if that's sort of like the goal, Just know that there's going to be a lot of those middle years where you're in that middle class period, making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, maybe up to $100,000, $150,000, up and down and volatile every single year. So just think about that. What tips can we give to actors building their careers then? I think number one is you are in fact building a career. So we've talked about this in previous videos. We're going to talk about this in subsequent videos, but you want to be networking. You want to be building your reputation. I'm going to link to a video up here. It's 6 things to avoid when you're pursuing your acting career. We'll put the link up here. And that's going to be, something that you're going to want to watch so that you kind of know how to build the correct business and make it sustainable so that that volatility is a little bit less. If we can rein in that volatility even a little bit and just become working professionals, that's going to really benefit us, right? You're also going to want to be training all the time. And I know that I'm telling you how much you can make and now I'm telling you about an expense, but the truth is that training is going to pay huge dividends over the course of your career. So just make sure you're training, make sure you're networking, make sure you continue building that reputation. The other key is really same as any other business. You want to diversify your income streams. So, if you look at the most famous actors in the world, many of them are not just acting. They have businesses, they have brands, they do personal appearances, they have, products that they sell, they have courses that they sell. These are things that you're going to want to start looking into also. So many stars do voiceover work now that they didn't used to do. And as a beginning actor or as a mid-level actor, that's something to really look into. What else can you do to make a little bit of income to supplement your acting career? You really want to start your startup as a startup with that startup mentality that every dollar you make is going to be reinvested in the business until it can support you. I think that's really important to understand. Most people are not going to draw a salary from their business if they start a business until that business can support itself and them. So something to think about is when you start this and you're looking at those years where you're making $5,000 or $6,000 or even less, especially at the beginning, it can feel that way. That's not going to be a time where you're drawing that money as a salary, right? You're going to be putting that right back into the business because we're building long term. That's a taste of how much you can earn a year as an actor. Again, it's so volatile. It's really impossible to put a number on it. You might be earning, honestly, you might lose money one year, but then the next year you might make $40,000. The next year you might make $20,000. The next year you might make $300,000. That's the fun of this business and also sometimes the agony of this business. But it is really something that you do for love. And like any business that you start, it is something that you want to build long-term and you are really invested in personally and emotionally. So thank you so much for watching. If you got value out of this video, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe, click that notification bell. That way you get notified anytime we post new video. Thanks so much for watching.